All right, so here I'm working on lessons for European history and stuff. There's a lot of goodies here, and behind there I have some notes I'm compiling on material science for my studies in technology and engineering. But so, history bores a lot of people. It's not a terribly popular subject, and that's a shame because there's plenty of good reasons to study history. Just on my own as one person, I came up with like a dozen solid ones. And, okay, I'll just see how many. Yeah, like 13 reasons. So, yeah, there's very good reasons why we study history, for reasons on the civilization level, to the organizational level, to the individual level and stuff, and the personal level and stuff. It doesn't matter what subject or field you're in, you're probably going to want to know some of the history of it too. It's going to give you some ideas, okay? But if a certain subject you really don't enjoy and stuff, just put it down for another time, indefinitely, whatever. Just you don't like the, studying stuff you hate is not how you get a good education and stuff. You work your way up, okay? But I've told you, and I said this before, some subjects just naturally matter more than others and stuff. They just do, okay? So, all right, now. All right, so several academic programs make use of it. Pre-law programs make use of it. History programs make use of it and stuff. You could totally get into law school with a history major as well. Somebody I know did. And yeah, it's fun, compelling, immersive, and interesting. It really is. It really is. And from the people that are history nuts, like you talk to them and stuff. They'll put you on it. Some of the best stories are actually nonfiction stories. So there you go. It shows patterns that help us understand where we are and where we're going. Okay? Yeah, there's patterns in history that are important that you have to understand, that are dependent on, really human nature and stuff. More so human nature than things like geologic cycles or things related to earth science cycles, though the weather does affect populations a lot, economies a lot. Volcanic activity as well. Plate tectonics affects history a lot too. Extinctions of species as well too. Though usually that's because of human behavior and stuff. One thing I've learned is that human beings, above pretty much every organism, are the most the most lethal, malicious beings and stuff with regards to impact on nature and stuff. We have absolutely ravaged nature, put holes in the ozone layer, extinguished hundreds of species and stuff, killed off millions of our own and stuff. I think the human history death toll is like what, 7 billion or something. This is not a joke. And yeah, there's just something about ape psychology that just makes them so reactively aggressive sometimes. It's yeah. History gives guidance and hope. Generation of ideas by leveraging the power of recorded information. Yep. Yep. There's a lot of ideas to pick out if you're really paying attention. If you really pay attention to the meaning of the information and stuff. Facilitating acceptance into higher education institutions that have demand for history majors. Okay. Employment in history-intensive occupations. Professorships are very prestigious, highly respectable, and great. Okay. Being a college professor at a good university and stuff, a high-ranking university, is a big freaking deal. Okay. I don't care who or what family member, political organization, whatever says and stuff. This stuff is a big deal. Okay. Encouraging the development of pupils, students, disciples, mentees, etc., and such for the betterment of U.S. residents. Okay. Okay. We learn many good lessons from history. Allegories of history is riddled with allegory. and whatnot, about being on the right side of history and not screwing the pooch, and making certain political decisions and stuff. Um, yeah, like there's recurring themes and stuff. Yeah, you learn whose house you're in when you say and do things and stuff. History teaches you who and where is the owner, like where the houses are, houses the territories are, who owns them, who controls them, and stuff. And yeah, learn from other people's pasts. Why make a mistake when some fool already made it for you? It's recorded down somewhere, and you can just save yourself the trouble by thinking a bit more. Right? There's a lot of experience you don't need to have if you just learn from other people's experience. Okay. Builds understanding of other areas such as science, law, economics, and political policy. Okay. And history has arcs and subplots that play into everyone's interests. History covers everything from earth science history, automotive history, art history, math history, and stuff. Just so many things. History is a great subject. Okay. Yeah. So now, going to just glancing over European history. Here we have this part about the ancient Greeks and stuff. Yes, they discovered magnetism and stuff. They also discovered electric fish. You know, they induced magnetism with friction on a certain material too. But yeah, so here we have them kind of grouped, the European peoples groups by their ethnic labels and stuff. Have some important European families here. There's some UK families here. Yeah. If you're still not turned on to history and stuff, see Education Learning Can Always Make Your Life Better video. Yeah. So this is going to be pretty thorough. When we're discussing histories and stuff, we have to understand that, there's the economic history and stuff, legal history, technological history, and then the cultural history with regards to like music, art, food, and stuff, folkways and stuff. And it gets very involved. Now you have this figure Manus here and stuff. He's considered the progenitor of the ancient Germans, as alleged by Tacitus and stuff. I don't know if they're mentioned by anyone else, but Tacitus, the Roman historian, mentions he alleges that the ancient Germans and stuff, the Germanians, were born from Manus, who reproduced with lady, I forget her name. But the name Manus stood out because this name became famous because of a groundbreaking video game called Dark Souls. Okay. Yeah, Dark Souls got involved here. But, that's where the name came from. Yeah, we have European diaspora peoples, like Ashkenazim, Romanis, Iberian Sephardims, and there's going to be more. Depends on how much history is on them, really. There's probably quite a few ethnicities that are lost to history, usually due to, not just to, colonial expansions and tribalism type politics and stuff, but to the criminal and murderous tendencies of humans, and the sometimes just accidents too, like accidental disease spreading, and because of greed and because of the tendency for history to be written by the victor and stuff. But this is why we stick to peer-reviewed sources. Okay. So yeah. Oh yeah, here we have some Native European instruments and stuff. But yeah, so this is pretty fun.